Well, in today's video, folks, we're going to make potatoes, fried potatoes, and onions. So let's go ahead and get started. Now I've got 4 red russet potatoes here, and they've been washed and cleaned. Got my trusty old bacon grease here. We're going to cook these in bacon grease today. Now you certainly could use olive oil or whatever oil of choice that you choose, but I like my bacon grease, so we're going to put about 2 tablespoons of bacon grease in here. And what we want to do first is go ahead and get some onions, or not onions, but potatoes sliced. Now there's certainly several ways that you can do this. Some folks like to just basically cut them in half like this, and then just slice them into little buttons like this, which is perfect. And also, you know, you can do it, you can make it into quarters like this and fry your potatoes. So it's really a matter of choice how you like your potatoes. You know, I know my wife likes these little buttons like this, and I do too. That's typically what you think of here in the South and Mid-South of what fried potatoes are. Fried potatoes down in this part of the country is a staple, man. I tell you what, everybody loves fried potatoes and onions. And recently I did a survey, a post on my YouTube channel, and was asking what people like to cook in their cast iron skillet, and I was amazed at how many people come back and said to me that they like fried potatoes and onions. So that's what we're going to do. I've got my skillet hot here. It's a Lodge 12-inch cast iron skillet. We got it on medium heat. You can see the bacon grease is starting to smoke a little bit. I'm going to add just a little bit more. Now the thing about this is you don't want too much oil. That's the problem a lot of times with cooking fried potatoes and onions. People put way too much oil in the skillet and the potatoes turn out real soggy. And you don't want soggy potatoes, or at least I don't. I don't want real greasy potatoes. And so we'll go ahead and lay some of these in here. Now one of the keys to having good fried potatoes and onions is don't overcrowd your skillet. Now we're going to add more than what we've got here, but you know, you don't want to put too many to where they won't get brown on the bottom. Now another little trick that you can do, and I don't do it every time, but you certainly can, and that's once you wash your potatoes and you're getting them ready, getting your skillet ready. A lot of people will put their potatoes in water and let them soak, and supposedly that is to help to reduce some of the starch in a potato. You know, I don't do that necessarily every time, very rarely actually. I just love my fried potatoes as they are. I wash them good and just cut them like this into little buttons and add them into my skillet. Now there's a couple other things that you need to know about making fried potatoes and onions. I've really been surprised as I was looking at some other videos online of what people do when they do their cast iron, or not necessarily cast iron, but when they fry potatoes and onions. And what they do that I feel is wrong is they will take and put a lid on top of the skillet. And folks, I'm just going to tell you, when you're cooking in cast iron, you put a lid on it, it's going to hold the steam in there, and what steam will do will make your potatoes soggy. Now if you want mushy potatoes and greasy mushy potatoes, then put a lid on it. But if you want good fried crispy potatoes, don't put a lid on it. Just be sure and just cook them like this. Don't overcrowd it. Just put enough in the bottom to kind of cover the skillet, and you're going to be fine when you do it that way. Now there's a couple other things too that I want to share with you when it comes to good cast iron fried potatoes and onions. Once you get these in here, kind of just toss them around in the skillet and let them get coated with a little bit of that bacon grease. And because the reason why I like bacon grease is because of the flavor. I mean, bacon grease gives you good flavor on just about any kind of dish you want to cook, and it's certainly great for fried potatoes. But now, what I was going to say, one thing you don't want to do when you're cooking your fried potatoes and onions, like I said, don't put a lid on it. And number two, you don't want to cook it too high. You want to be sure and cook about medium heat, and that way your potatoes won't stick to the cast iron. If you get too hot, you're going to have an issue with that. So just be sure and keep your skillet on about medium high. And the other thing that I want to share with you that you don't want to do, two other things actually, is you don't want to add your onions very early. You don't want to put them in immediately, and I see a lot of people do that. When you put your potatoes in your skillet and you add your onions to it too early, a lot of times your onions will get fried up quicker than your potatoes will, and so you'll end up with dark black onions in your potatoes instead of just sauteed onions. So what I generally want to do when I put my potatoes in the skillet is I let them cook to about halfway done, and possibly even 3/4 of the way done, before I cut my onions and place them in the cast iron skillet. And so once I'm done, when my fried potatoes are done, then I have some good color to the potatoes. They're nice and brown and crispy, and my onions are very soft and translucent, and they're perfectly, they're just not brown and burnt. And because that burnt onion taste kind of ruins fried potatoes for me. So we're going to let these cook down for a little while, and I'll be back here in a minute. Typically this takes about 8 or 10 minutes for you on medium heat to get some good color on this, and we'll be back here shortly and we'll show you what we do with our onions and what our fried potatoes and onions look like. Now that we got these in here and we're beginning to fry them, one thing that I wanted to share with you, two other quick tips on this, is you don't want to stir these that often. You want to let them get a good a good browning on the bottom before you stir them very much, because if you stir them too much, they could begin to become mushy, and you don't want mushy. And the second tip that I want to share with you also, and I'm not sure that I said it earlier, but you don't want to season it until later on. You want to wait and add your salt and pepper, and of course I'm going to be using SPG, so I'm going to put my salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder a little bit later on, especially like when we add the onions. So that's just a couple quick things that will help you on your fried potatoes and onions. Okay, it's been about 15 minutes, so we want to show you what these look like. They're starting to get brown. They're starting to tighten up a little bit, as you say. And so once they kind of get brown like this on both sides, what I tend to like to do at this point, I like to get to this stage here before I ever add my onions. Now you can do your onions however you want to do them. I prefer to have mine basically in a half moon, to cut them like that. That way, if you're using diced onions, they're awful small and they can tend to get too done, too burnt, too fried, too quick. And so I just basically take an onion and cut it in quarters, or not quarters, but in half moons, and that works great for me. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get the rest of these onions in here, and we're going to let them cook down. Now generally, since this has already been about 15 minutes, once you get your onions in here, you're probably looking at another 5 to 10 minutes before they get completely done. So we'll let these onions cook down with the potatoes, and we'll be back here in just a minute and plate this up and show you what they look like. Okay, well, it's been about 30 minutes since we started this project here, and so I want to show you something here. Our next step is to actually add our salt and pepper, our seasoning, salt and pepper, onion powder, and garlic powder. So you want to do that, and then just kind of incorporate that into your fried potatoes and onions. And another thing that I want to show you here about using a cast iron skillet. When you use a cast iron skillet and you don't use too much oil and you cook at a medium heat, I want you to look, your potatoes don't stick. And cast iron retains heat, it keeps heat uniformly in the skillet, and so everything cooks nicely. And we'll go ahead and get these. I'll turn the heat off here. We'll add some of these. I want to show you what these look like. That's what they look like just right out of the skillet. Now what I generally like to do is, and you can do this if you want, I like ketchup on mine. You can put it on the side if you like, but I don't do that. I like to add a little ketchup all over mine. And then of course, certainly, I know they're hot, but we're gonna have to take a taste. Wow. When you cook these with only about 2 tablespoons of bacon grease or your favorite oil, you could use olive oil or whatever, they won't come out real greasy and mushy. They'll come out good and crispy. And man, I tell you what, they're perfect. I just love that. That is awesome. So, you know, hey, you guys take a look at this video right here. It was made for you. We appreciate you guys. Y'all have a great day now. It's Mike over here with Mr. Cast Iron. We're going to have a little bit more fried taters and onions. How about that? Yes, indeed.